I hunt cryptids for the government. It's a very lucrative job for me. I mostly capture and kill skinwalkers and chupacabras, although I have hunted other beasts as well. I've killed a couple werewolves and even a Bigfoot once. My very first kill was sheer dumb luck. I was on a camping trip in New Mexico with my friend Corey. We made our way to the middle of the Apache Mesa, a small cluster of tree-covered hills just west of the Heron Lake National Park. There was a spot that I'd camped at multiple times before. It was just a couple miles off of a dirt road that snaked its way through the trees. I had a truck that I parked off the side of the road in some brush and grabbed our things. We had enough supplies to last us 5 nights, but I only intended on staying for 2. The first day was spent setting up camp and telling stories. That night we had a few drinks and roasted brats on the fire. After a few hours of drinking and eating, and admiring the vast expanse of space that looked as if we could reach out and touch it, we decided to call it a night and went to sleep. I was the first to rise the next morning. My head was pounding and the morning light was blinding. I left my tent to go to the bathroom and make sure our supplies weren't rummaged through by the local wildlife. When I came back, everything was just as we'd left it, except for the footprints that now surrounded our tents. They weren't there when we went to sleep. They looked like bare human feet. They circled both of our tents and then led into the woods. I tapped on Corey's tent to wake him up. Corey exited his tent, yawning and moaning. "Oh man, it's too early. My head is swimming. I think I drank too much last night." His words were somewhat slurred and mumbled. "Yeah, you and me both, bud. I'd let you sleep more, but I think we have a problem." I pointed to the tracks in the dirt. "Those weren't there last night, and I didn't make them. I'm pretty sure you didn't either." "I'm still wearing my boots. I never took them off, so it wasn't me," he said. "Also, aren't we kind of far from civilization out here?" "Kinda. Hardly anybody camps out in these woods, and I've never seen another person near this spot." Corey looked nervous at that. His eyes were almost bugging out of his head. I wasn't too worried because I had my 9mm and a .44 Magnum as backup. "Don't worry," I tried to reassure him. "It might just be some junkie looking for something to use. I can handle anyone that comes through here trying to bother us." That seemed to calm him down a bit. "It's probably best if we don't drink tonight, though," I suggested, and Corey agreed. I wanted to see where the footprints led, so I grabbed my pistols and had Corey follow me. He was a little apprehensive at first, but decided it was better to come with me than it was to stay at the campsite alone without protection. The footprints were erratically spaced, like someone struggling to walk. They ended abruptly at the base of a large tree. I looked up, but I couldn't see anything. The branches were so thick that the sunlight was unable to pierce through the foliage. We walked back to the campsite and spent the rest of the day in a state of unease. Every twig that snapped or leaf that rustled put us on edge. "I'll stay up for a few hours and watch over the campfire tonight. You try to get some rest, bud," I said groggily. "Are you sure? You look as tired as I feel," Corey responded. "I'll be fine. I'll wake you when it's time to change shifts. We're gonna need some rest to make our hike back to the truck first thing in the morning. Now head to sleep." Corey was reluctant until I gave him a serious glare. Without another word, he went inside his tent. He was asleep soon after, evidenced by his snoring that was similar to the growl of an angry grizzly bear. The next few hours ticked on slowly as I watched the fire dance and shrink. We were running low on firewood, so I had to go grab a few more logs. On my first trip back, I stumbled over a rock and my revolver fell into the ashes of the fire pit. I quickly grabbed it and brushed it off before the embers ignited the bullets that were now covered in white ash. After that, I decided to use my flashlight that was mounted to my 9mm as a guide. On my second run, I heard a twig snap and what sounded like an animal panting. I shined my light in the direction that it came from. While scanning the tree line, I saw something shine back. 2 red orbs were illuminated in the dark, staring directly at me. They were low to the ground, which made me think it might be a coyote or a wolf. I started to back away slowly, not taking my light off the eyes, when they began to rise up. My light was dim at this range, but I could make out a dark figure in the brush. It stood about 6 feet tall and looked humanoid. It started to move towards me, but its movements were jolty and erratic. It came close enough for me to see its face, and it was horrifying. It was a cross between a man and a wolf, and there was a dark, viscous liquid pouring from its mouth. "What are you?" I asked, more to myself than the creature. This seemed to agitate it, and it dropped down on all fours. It snarled and lunged at me. I unloaded my whole magazine into its chest and face. That slowed it down, but it was still coming for me. I switched to my revolver and put 3 rounds into its head. The creature dropped, motionless. The noise woke Corey, and he came bolting through the trees. "What's going on? What the hell is that?" Corey shouted. "Run!" I yelled back. We sprinted back to the truck, dodging trees and underbrush. We got inside and locked the door. It took a while for us to catch our breath. Corey was the first to break the silence. "What the hell just happened?" "I don't know." "What was that thing?" "Corey, why did it look like that?" "Corey!" I cut him off. "Breathe. You need to calm down." Okay. He took a minute to breathe and then spoke again. "What was that thing?" "I'm not exactly sure, but there was a story I heard once from a Navajo tribesman." Corey sat quietly, listening intently. I continued. "He spoke of a creature called Yi-Naldlushi, or Skinwalker. He seemed apprehensive to even mention its name. According to Navajo folklore, a Skinwalker is a malevolent shape-shifting witch. They often take on the form of a wolf or a coyote and hunt their prey, but they have the power to change into any animal they desire. He said the best way to kill one was to have a shaman perform a magic ritual that turns the Skinwalker's evil back in on itself. If that isn't an option, one can be shot with bullets covered in white ash, but it must be shot in the head or neck. Luckily, my .44 Magnum happened to fall into the fire pit and was buried in ash just before I found the beast." Corey seemed extremely shaken up. He didn't say another word after that. I had decided it was best to stay in the truck until morning. Once the sun began to creep over the green hills, I grabbed my phone from the glove compartment. I called the local police to report the incident, and they sent out a unit to our location. Government vehicles showed up just as the officers exited their vehicles. Before the police even said anything, some men in suits took over the site and walked directly up to us. They split us up and spoke to us each individually, and gave us some options. Accept a large payment to keep quiet about what we'd seen, quit our jobs and work for them, or be thrown in a deep and dark cell where we would never be heard from again. Thinking back on it now, I'm pretty sure that last option was more of a joke for their pleasure. Corey took the buyout, and I never heard from him again. I took the job, and that's how I began my training as a cryptid hunter.